Welcome to our 11:30 panel, and I think you can tell by our panelists here, it's about the new Hollywood and creating gender balance in the industry. So I'd like to introduce our moderator this morning, Mr. Kit Williamson.
Hi everybody, my name is Kit Williamson. I'm an actor and filmmaker. I created a series called Eastsiders, which is an LGBT series that first premiered on Logo, which is Viacom's LGBT channel, and then came to Vimeo On Demand this last month as an exclusive series before it comes out on DVD and video on demand on other platforms next month. And I'm also the founder of the New Hollywood LGBT chapter, which we're so excited to be launching in 2016. I am beyond thrilled to be here and meeting all of you. This is incredible. What an incredible festival. What incredible work that we have seen here. And what an incredible conversation to start with young people who are entering the industry in the next few years. So thank you all so much for being here, and please give yourself a hand. Introduce themselves and give us a little background about who you are and what you do.
Great. My name is Courtney Spence, and I have been in the creative industry for about 16 years. I started off creating a student group on campus when I was in college at 19 called Students of the World. It's now a national and really global nonprofit organization that is a community of emerging creative talent, high school, college, and kind of emerging professionals that are united in a purpose to use their creativity for a force for good. So we're all about creating cause-based content, all about bringing communities together through storytelling. And then out of that, I started my own advertising agency called the C. Spence Group that helps funnel professional production opportunities to our creative network. And then I'm also a producing partner in my first feature narrative film, and currently in the midst of adapting a script for that. So that's what I do. Hi everybody, my name is Alexis Kara, and I am a dancer, actress, choreographer, filmmaker, producer, writer, dance educator, and I have been working in the education field since I was pretty much 15 years old when I taught my very first dance class. I'm so impressed with your films. Thank you for sharing all of your work. It was really impressive and incredible. I'm a member of the New Hollywood, which you'll hear exactly what that is about, and so excited to have you guys. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brianna Brown, and I make a living as an actress. I have since I was 19. It's been 2 years, and I'm kidding. It's been way over a decade. And I am also a producer. I have a feature film that is in post-production. I have short film that has won multiple awards around the world. I am the founder and CEO of the New Hollywood, which you'll find out about in the beginning, and I'm also the chair ambassador for the National Women's History Museum.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pina DeRosa. I'm also a member and a board member of the New Hollywood. And by trade, I am a speaker. If you're familiar with TED Talks, you can find mine out there. Can't wait to see yours. And I'm a producer. I have Sniffing Out Cancer that is in production. You can find out more about sniffingOutCancer.com. And I have a book that's coming out. I'm actually, by trade, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I have a book called Fit from the Inside Out that is coming out in a couple weeks.
Hi, I'm Lisa Haysha, and I started filmmaking in my early 20s. I always had a passion for it, but as a minority, I'm half Middle Eastern and female. I was always told you can't be an actress, you always have to be a writer, director, or something, but not even that in the business. So I started off slow, but I started writing my own material, and I got bold and ended up selling one script, and then it didn't get made. So I realized that as a woman, you really have to go out and know how to make your own money, raise your own money to really get your vision out there. So I wrote and produced and directed a feature in my 20s, and then I sold another script in my 30s. And now I am doing life coaching and helping other actors and people in the entertainment business really reach their goals. And I'm also an author and speaker. Thank you.
Before we get into the discussion, I would love to hear a little bit more about Students of the World and how you work with young filmmakers.
Yeah, so Students of the World really started with this idea that I kind of looked around at my peers. I was a sophomore in college and had a lot of really great, talented photographers and filmmakers at Duke University, which is where I went. There's a great Center for Documentary Studies, and they talk about the real importance of us to use media as a tool for social activism and change. And so the thought I had was, why don't I marry kind of those two ideas whereby I see great talent and great passionate young people that I'm friends with, and I see a lot of causes and organizations that need content produced for them, and why don't we kind of marry the two? So we have now produced short films and media campaigns in over 27 different countries. It's kind of a two-way street with Students of the World. We both provide production opportunities for our community. So whether it's an opportunity to travel to Ethiopia to produce a film for a nonprofit or to produce content for local organizations, we do that. But then we also help foster and sort of mentor existing projects. So as an example, we have a group of filmmakers that are currently on their bicycles biking from Alaska to Argentina. They're currently in Chile. It is an 18-month journey, and their whole purpose is to document stories of progress along the way. So that was a group of alumni of our program that came to us and said, hey, we want to do this crazy thing. I don't even know how to ride a bike, so this whole thing really terrified me, but I thought it was a great concept, and I was like, we want to support that. So it's called Pedal for Progress, and yeah, you should check it out. It's really good.
And it is now a 501c3 nonprofit. We focus mainly on goal setting. It's a philanthropic goal group. We help mainly women in the entertainment industry and soon the LGBT community and eventually the just straight men community on achieving their personal and professional goals while simultaneously giving back. I found when I was younger it was hard to find women that really had my back and wanted to be supportive of me as an actress. And so what I did is I slowly found people of a similar mindset or who were willing to shift their paradigm that women don't need to be catty and competitive to get ahead, that we can actually help support each other and your win is my win. And by creating this movement, it's been really amazing to see people jump into areas that they've maybe felt timid and then thrive and win awards as filmmakers, as writers, as directors, whereas before they would have been too scared to do it on their own. So we really want to help shift that idea to help people in the entertainment industry thrive and tell their stories, and more importantly, to be able to use that platform for the better and to give back.
That's great. Thank you both. And my next question is for the members of the New Hollywood. I'm curious what initially drew you to the group and to the idea of community amongst women in the entertainment industry.
I'll speak to that. For myself, I work as a coach, I speak, I work with wonderful people, and I felt for myself it was a way to hold myself accountable to a higher degree. I looked at it as a way to create a mastermind of women who are like-minded, personally interested in growth, and a value system that is coming from abundance and cooperation versus, I have to get this versus you have to get it's either or, and that's just not a model that I like to participate in. So finding other people that like to come from abundance, go towards that, and then stretch myself to operate at a whole new level of effectiveness. That was my experience of it. And then giving back, the opportunity to give back and contribute, meet awesome ladies.
Yes.
And for me, how many of you have ever felt scared before? I hope everybody raises their hand. If not, then you're a robot. Well, so I came out to LA after having been in New York for 6.5 years as a Broadway dancer, and I really I knew two people really, and I met Brianna through a friend, and when you're surrounded, even if you feel scared, but when you're surrounded by people, and in this case it was women, and I had never been really around a group of women who I felt like had my back, and I know you've used that phrase too, but who I could trust their advice implicitly. And so when I met Brianna and I saw what the group was doing to create community, especially for artists in Los Angeles where it's extremely spread out, and it's hard to find a place where you can really feel like you can share your fears and trust what the feedback people are giving you. That was when I knew that I wanted to be in that kind of an environment. And also, I will say it helped me grow because I felt less threatened by feedback. And I don't know if you guys ever experienced that, like when, your peers want to give you feedback, it can be a little bit intimidating at times. But when you're around people who love you and they care about you, and everybody is in this win-win paradigm, I found that I was learning a lot faster and growing a lot quicker because I was able to share my fears, be vulnerable, and then get good feedback and really take it and really receive it. So it really was a life-changing shift for me to be surrounded by, especially women, and I'm not excluding you men, but you know what, you guys naturally do that. You're like, yeah, hey bro, like what's up? Like let's, you want to throw the ball? I don't know. I mean, like I think
You want to exchange lenses?
yeah, like it's like what camera are you shooting on? Like dope. Let me get your camera. Cool. I think it's different for girls, and I don't know if you women have experienced that, but I didn't really have that community of dancers in New York, so that's why I joined.
And I joined because I've been friends with Pina, and we've done things together, and I love and respect her. And she's like, oh my God, I met this group of women, and she started telling me about this group, the New Hollywood, and Pina was awesome before, but I saw such enormous growth, and I thought, who are these women who are doing extraordinary things? So then I met Brianna, and I'm like, wow, she's so in her integrity, and she's so win-win, and she has brought together a phenomenal group of women. So each person I met in this group, one blew me away after another. And as a life coach in Hollywood, of working with a lot of artists, the biggest thing they say is, I feel so alone, or how do you make it? And they're all by themselves in their little apartment with their four walls trying to make something happen. And that's almost impossible,
Yeah, and that kind of segues perfectly into the next thing that I want to talk about, which is the idea of community.
Yes.
We are in an industry that, it's no secret, is not the friendliest. And it's also not the friendliest to any sort of marginalized community or marginalized voice, any sort of group that is not specifically straight, white, cisgendered males, is going to have an uphill battle to find community. And that's why it's so important that people come together and bond together. How important has community been in your career, and how can we foster communities for specifically women?
I think that, in the entertainment industry, right now all of you have this lovely luxury of being in high school, and you have something like this, which is lovely. You have this beautiful set community. You're going to continue to have that in college. But the problem is that when you go out into the professional industry, it isn't that way. What we're talking about is not the norm. So it is incredibly important to find people that are like-minded, who want to have your back, and it's a lot different. I have a lot of friends who have stories of filmmakers who are suddenly way more successful than they were in college, in the professional industry, and they're still struggling or working just as hard, and it's not easy to sit there and be supportive or be happy for them. So I think that the biggest thing that I can say is it's important to create your own tribe. It's important to find out who really has your back, and
In addition to that, how many of you feel better when you help somebody else? Right? So what that does is immediately you're focusing out to support other people, and you actually end up feeling better, and guess what? You end up learning something. And I think in community, people who originally, maybe who you thought were going to be your mentors, end up learning from you. And what happens is your teachers become students, and students becomes teachers, and you can really, really learn from each other because you have a shared vision. So in the industry, what happens is I think people start to compete because they think there's not enough roles, there's not enough money to go around. I need this camera, and that person has that camera. I'm going to try to trip them down so they don't get that camera, or whatever it is.
or stealing script ideas. That happens all the time. That happens all the time.
When the truth is that when you actually end up leading with a sense of community and a sense of focusing out to support other people, it comes back. The getting is in the giving. And a community sense fosters that kind of care, and I think you just end up feeling happier. which
I think
is
just to
important.
jump on that as well is, that you are who you surround yourself with, and it's easy, and especially in Los Angeles or in New York, to be surrounded by people that are not thriving. Especially once you get out of college and you're really hitting the pavement and you're looking for money and you're working crappy jobs, or you're interning and you're not making much and you're really having to struggle. So I remember being really conscious of that as I worked my terrible, crappy job, and I'm surrounded by, and someone said that to me, you are who you're surrounded with, and I looked around and I thought, I better work a lot harder.
And I think community is also important. I mean, we all live, the four of us live in LA or wherever you are, big city, small city. It's fun when things are going well, but even as things, when your career are thriving, you might be having a challenging time with your health or your family or just hitting a speed bump. So community comes in and allows us to, instead of holding up, because it's so much easier to kind of hide and being able to still be in a forward movement of growth. Maybe a little bit slower, but community allows us to not stall or, spin.
Yeah, and that most people, when they really want something, they're like, oh, I've got to meet somebody, I've got to get all these people to help me. The best way to do it is, how can I help? Volunteer, do something for someone else, and then you'll see so many people coming to help you because you're actually building friendships and bonds and giving, like Alexis was saying. So.
And I just want to say, I think it's important, you all are the future of this industry, and at the end of the day, storytelling and filmmaking is about collaboration. You can't do it alone. You just can't. And I think that we forget that as we advance in our years. So I think it's really important for you all to carry that with you, the experiences you have working with your friends, with your peers, with your teachers, knowing that it is collaborative, it is about community, and don't lose that. Thank you. Sorry.
And this is all beautiful, but for a second, I want to talk about the nitty gritty, because we had a panel yesterday actually where we got into some details. And I think briefly, because we don't want to dwell on the negative, I would love to hear from each of you some of the struggles that women face in this industry. Just, it's something that needs to be spoken about, because I think too often speaking about it is viewed as complaining rather than analyzing the issue.
The opportunity to help support other women, or also will resonate with issues that you have too. I think a lot of it is limiting beliefs as to what you think is possible, what you think you deserve. I hear a lot of artists who have a lot of stories in their head of how things should be, or have an idea of struggling artist, and they never allow themselves to move past that, or getting really bitter about opportunities, or really viewing everything as hard instead of working smart and not learning from their mistakes. I think that's the biggest thing is not learning from your mistakes, not asking for support. But I think that, and I can say this from a woman, but I know this does happen to men as well, is there is incredible sexual harassment in the entertainment industry that would not happen in other industries. It happens, and people are blacklisted, and it can be a very difficult thing, especially even nowadays. And I've had that, in my life.
Yeah, and the challenge, whether it's that or even just your artistic opinion, I feel, is speaking up, because oftentimes we feel like if we're new in the industry and we speak up, then we may be put on a list for like, oh, she's difficult to work with, or he has an opinion, and so learning to speak up with a sense of balance, a sense of respect, a sense of compassion, but not selling out on your own values, really listening to your intuition and speaking up, even if it feels scary, because that means you're on the right track. And still with dignity and compassion and humanity, but not selling yourself out.
And now that you guys are all so tech savvy with YouTube and all those things. You youngins. No, I mean, you guys are millennials, and the future of this industry is digital. And so the cool thing is, we were at this festival yesterday that Kit did called the Brooklyn Web Fest, which I'm sure you guys will be submitting to someday. Is that you guys, what happens is, in high school I was playing I was in the Crucible, and I did all these great roles, and then I got to New York, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna hold Palm Frond #3 and stand there and step touch, And I thought to myself, I'm super talented, and so my ego flared up, and the truth is that what I didn't realize, and because these platforms didn't exist back in 1850, when I was doing Broadway, is that you guys can create content at the tip of your fingers. People shoot movies on iPhones now. So you guys can always be sharing your voice, refining your voice, like learning who you are through your art. Like that's what you guys get to do because you have this platform of a digital world and you do consume content that way. So like it kind of goes with what Pina was saying is when in network television, ladies, you may find, especially for women of minorities, I'm actually Latina, I just don't look it. And ironically, I kind of am like, hey, can I play the Spanish woman because yo soy Latina and I don't get to play my ethnicity. And so it's like a kind of reverse thing that happens for me, but especially for women of color and for women of different ethnicities, the roles are even smaller. I mean, obviously we had a great breakthrough this year at the Emmys, hello. But, so you're gonna step into an industry where the roles on network television and in studio features and things like that are just narrower. The casting is narrower, so you have to refine your voices even more, if that makes sense.
I highly recommend, if you haven't checked out these websites, the Gina Davis Institute on Gender in the Media. She has incredible information on how to increase female roles in front of and behind the camera. The statistics are startling. And a lot of tips on how to change that, whether it be changing male characters to female characters, making sure crowd scenes are equal, 50-50 women and men. Start paying attention to crowd scenes. You'll notice it's about 17% women, and it's just it's showing us that women are not part of the population. It's just what it's showing. The other thing that's also worth really watching, paying attention to, is the Representation Project. And that is a Misrepresentation documentary as well as The Mask You Live In, and it really highlights the problem of how we objectify women and the hypermasculinity of men, and also what the results of that is in our society. I feel very strongly, this is why I'm volunteering my time to be here and speak to all of you, is that we all have the opportunity to use our platforms and our voices and our creativity to show compassion and to tell stories that can move people and hopefully inspire people or make them laugh when they're going through a hard time. And we can really help change the trajectory of our society. And I think we have this beautiful opportunity, which is as filmmakers, but also as groups of people. There are powers in groups, and powerful groups have done really horrible things in our world, and still are. And powerful groups have done really incredible things. So I guess the reason that I really feel inspired to be here is I want to tell you that you are capable of having purpose in your passion, and to not hold back from that. Because I found as an artist, when I really started to blossom as an actress and also producing content, is when I started to have a purpose behind it and to feel brave enough to step into that, and therefore I was also asking support of other people instead of trying to please everyone to get something that might be commercially viable. Which I'm not saying that's not important too, but there are ways to meld both. And as artists and as filmmakers and creators, you have the opportunity to lead by example.
Yes, and I wanted to touch on that also. You're all so talented, you're here, you're young, and what Alexis was saying about it's the digital age. When I was in my 20s, all the roles I was getting, I'm like, I don't want to play this role. It was all about nudity, and when you'd get a role, I had a producer who was top of his game say, if you don't sleep with me, and his pregnant wife was in the film, then you'll never get another role again, and I'll never cast you again. And it's like in those moments, you have to go in and say, who am I as a person, and who do I want to be, and not sell out. And now you have the opportunity to have the camera in your hand and create yourself. And I would encourage everyone here, which I'm sure you're already doing, is women help other women. We're assets to each other. Let's get together and do something powerful, because it's really up to us. And there's a lot of women who are still creating a lot of roles for men. And I'm not saying, cancel all men out, but just really being conscious of women helping women, and you'll all see the growth in that.
And I just want to also just amplify the fact that, like, by no means are we saying that all men are bad. There are incredible men in the entertainment industry, in every industry. There are incredible men, there are incredible women, there are not so incredible people. But it is important that all of us, in my opinion, to come together and support each other, because our world is in a not so fabulous place, and we have the luxury to be able to pursue our dreams in this country and to be able to really help inspire other people.
And film is such a universal language, so use it. for a particular purpose. Find your purpose and use film for that, because you have those skills. So if you marry the two, film and purpose, you literally can change the world if you want to.
And I have a question for Courtney. Coming from the nonprofit world, from organizing student filmmakers, how do you navigate this idea of representation, both in front of and behind the camera in your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think we didn't realize it at the time, but the early years of Students of the World really was about creating exchanges between cultures. So, you know, our first productions were in Russia, Cuba, Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, Guatemala, and by default, I think we attracted a really diverse group of young people that were interested in that. So in a sense, we kind of had the choir that came to the table because they were already committed to diversity, and you know, we had really great groups of very diverse young people. And what we realized is the power of their voices returning to campus to use their films for good, to educate people about whether it's orphanages in Russia or, you know, the Children's War, which was a feature-length film we ended up producing around the LRA and the terrible work they were doing in northern Uganda at the time. But the powerful voice that our diverse teams had when they came back to educate others that maybe weren't necessarily aware of those issues, or didn't think that, you know, a young female student didn't think that she could be a filmmaker and travel halfway around the world to produce a film. She can. So we really, that component of not just producing the content, but then using it as a microphone and an amplifier on campus, I think was really able to kind of affect a much wider audience in terms of change and bringing more people to the table. So in a sense, we've just always been about diversity, but didn't necessarily come out of the gates to do that specifically. It just was sort of a byproduct.
It's amazing. That's awesome. And I just want to add that I think that film is a mirror to our world, but sometimes it's a funhouse mirror. And to talk about intersectionality as well, because as female filmmakers, as female artists, we have an equal obligation to consider other groups and to make sure that ours is not the only new seat at the table, right? We have to really think about how we're being deliberate in our casting choices and our hiring, and I know that that's hard when you have no budget and you're in college, but think about it. That's all you can really charge yourself with, is really being deliberate about it. And my last question for the group before we turn it over to questions from you guys is, beyond just fostering a sense of community, what are things that students can do?
Well, I want to take that back just a step, because I think that the most important thing in order to really thrive in the entertainment industry, and I really ask that you all hear me on this, is to consistently create content. The people who have gotten ahead never stop creating content. It's heartbreaking when you spend all this time and energy and money into, you know, your baby, and you've all put money into your baby, and you're gonna, you know, you got into this festival and probably other festivals, but then it's time to be like, great, that baby's done, time to move on to the next baby. Or how do I take that project and I expand it, and just learn from what worked, what didn't, why, and how can I move forward? It's this constant evaluation of yourself and what you have done that will really make you persevere and learn from your mistakes. And there's going to be a lot of heartache. You know, it's very true, the whole idea of you need to put 10,000 hours in order to be a professional. And in the entertainment industry, it's the best of the best. So, you know, one thing an agent said to me a long time ago was, if you want to compete in the Olympics, you have to practice like an Olympian. And I looked at most of the people around me, and they just didn't work that hard. You know, and it's very easy to get distracted and think, well, if I just network and go out a lot, that, you know, that's how a lot of people are doing it. And those people that, you know, didn't work as smart when I was in my 20s are still waiting tables. So, you know, and it's sad. Some of them are they're really going through a hard time versus the people who really persevere. Now, I had to sink or swim. I didn't have a handout. I figured it out all on my own. So, you know, use whatever platform or opportunity you are given by support from your parents. Be smart. And just know that if you don't have support, don't let that be your story as to why you're not successful. Utilize that as an opportunity to grow past that. So I hope you can take those little seeds so that you can all be really successful.
I would say also continue reading. Regardless of whether you have support from your family or not. I'm an international student. I came from Europe to this American thing was literally the American dream, so different for me. And I was lucky to have a family that supported that idea. My dad happens to be in town today. And my dad and my mom gave me really cool books, like How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich, The Alchemist. So continue feeding your heart, your purpose, your mind. And now that I'm in my 40s, I kind of distilled that in my 20s I could hear my intuition, but I wasn't listening to it. And I learned in my 30s how to listen to it, and now in my 40s I really let myself be guided by that. So if you have distinguish between hearing your intuition and then listening to it, to me that's really where I had a hunch, and I was like, now I'm following that hunch. And every time I looked back and I quote unquote failed, I was like, oh, I had that hunch and I didn't listen to it. So that, I think, could be a really great guiding compass, and keep reading and feeding your heart, feeding your mind, and keep expanding your soul, your purpose, and your projects will follow with that.
And I wanted to add on that, of reading is great and everything, but I've traveled all over the world to over 80 countries, and I found that living life fully, a lot of people just stay in their apartment and they're reading and getting inspired. Make your own inspiration. Don't just learn from other people. Go and have life experiences, because that's where the juiciness is. That's where all the stories are. I met so many incredible people around the world, and that's where I get my ideas. I went and stayed in caves in Petra with Bedouins, and you sit there and you're writing. You have so much inspiration.
We met in Cairo.
Yeah, we met in Cairo, and we lived 10 minutes apart. So I'd say go out there and put yourself in uncomfortable situations, because that's when you constantly grow. And when you do that, I met 3 powerful people in my life. So I'll touch on this briefly. The first one was Sandra Bullock. She lived across the street from me right before she got Speed. And she'd say, oh my God, what am I doing in this business? I'm never going to make it. She didn't feel like she was the most talented actress, but she was nice and she was kind. And I said, what do you do to stand out? She said, well, I have this movie coming out, Speed. And she said, I want to get out of the country because I don't think it's going to do well, and I don't want to read my own press. What a bad actress I am. And we were laughing, and then she came back and she was a superstar. And how did she get the part? Because she was nice, and they fired someone on the show that wasn't cooperative, and someone on the show said, I worked with Sandra, we need someone in a pinch. But what she said she did, she said, I may not be the most talented, she said, but every Friday night I do a play reading, so I'm in a play every Friday night. And that's what is so important. Again, community, and you're working every week, so you don't have to sit around and wait to get hired. And she gave her picture and resume to 2 people she didn't know, casting people, directors, producers. So every day, so 10 people each week knew who Sandra Bullock was. And that's powerful too, being kind, letting people know who you are, because it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And you got to remember that. The second one was Madonna. I happened to be dating her, arranger, and I went on the Virgin tour for a part of it, and I said, how did you do it, especially with a father like hers who was so, Italian and conservative? It's like, how did you become Madonna? And she said, I traveled, and traveling alone, because when you're alone, you get to know yourself, especially in families like Latino families, Middle Eastern families, where everything is the community thought. This is how you think, this is how you have to be, this is who you are. Once you get out alone, you have to make your own decisions. And once you do that, you become a better filmmaker. Do you get that, how that works hand in hand? Because now it's your opinion, your thoughts, and you don't have to sit around and wait for anyone else. And the third one was Stella Adler. I sat in one of her classes, and I saw she was a phenomenal teacher, but she also was saying what Pina was saying. You got to learn, read the greats, read Chekhov and Steinbeck, and learn how they created a story. Really study them, and then get out on your own and have your life experiences. So that's...
My only other thing I want to say is let it be messy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I don't know if any of you have never done something because you were afraid it wasn't going to be perfect the first time. I don't know, that's me. And so let it be messy. So you can make a difference by, if you change one person's perspective or affect one person's life, you've done your job as an artist and filmmaker. So just let it out, let it be messy, and you're just gonna keep getting better the more you do it.
One of the things that I learned when we did The Encounter, which is the first short that I produced, and it was actually by one of the women that was in my group, and she'd never written anything. She'd just directed, she'd performed on stage, she never directed behind the camera. And she wrote her script, and it was really lovely. It was the format was completely incorrect. I had the opportunity. She trusted me with it, as we all know. It's really hard to find someone that you actually can trust to show your material, especially when it's raw and vulnerable. And not polished yet, and I told her all the great things about it. I love this, I love this, I love this. You don't need so many ... to indicate pauses, things like that. And there was she was vulnerable enough with me, so I was able to be really helpful. And I think that's important for everyone to when other artists are sharing their material. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's like an improv. Yes and how can we make this better? Yes and it's very easy to criticize. And cut something down and then stop the seed from growing. So she ended up taking this. She finished the short. She submitted it to the best festivals, and she didn't get into any of them. And then she's like, "I'm done. I'm never going to do it again." I said, "All right, no." And I talked to my friends who'd won the BAFTA, and I had them come over, and we sat down. And I said, "What did you do?" And they said, "Well, every project we had, we wrote a different submission that was specific to that festival, and we included people within our crew that were from that area or had some sort of association to make it really stand out. Like we took the time to do that." They said we also sat there and submitted to 200 festivals. Now they didn't get into a lot of the big festivals, but they ended up winning the BAFTA. So. It's learning from other people. It's not stopping. It's not, and she could have stopped filmmaking altogether, from that. And I've seen a lot of people do that in different phases of their career. Just stop once they hit a roadblock and a hurdle, instead of looking at that and seeing like, oh my gosh, this is a hurdle. It's hard. Life is hard sometimes, but it's an opportunity to grow and to learn and to do something different. So.
And she's won so many awards.
And she's won so many awards. She's gone on, and that project has actually affected a lot of people around the world in different because it has a lot of socially conscious messages. And she's produced her features, and she's produced multiple shorts. So, that could have stopped her, and she continued to persevere because I helped her, support her.
Courtney, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, just to build on that, I think what we're talking about is not being afraid to fail. And I think that the fear of failure can be very paralyzing. And when I go around and work with our college students, I talk all the time, like, now is actually the time to fail. Yeah. You don't necessarily have a mortgage and kids and things that sort of up the ante a bit when it comes to failure. And if you can learn how to fail fast, how to embrace it, feel all of the emotion. Don't deny it. Feel the pain, feel the hurt, but get up quick. And each time, get up a little bit more quickly, a little bit faster. It'll make you so much more productive, so much happier, honestly. Because failure is also an essential part of creativity. Failure is the scientific method is all about failing. You have a hypothesis, you test it, it fails, you try it again. So failure is a really big part of what we're talking about, and I find that a lot of people are just paralyzed by their fear, and that doesn't get you anywhere.
It's called mental toughness, you guys.
Learn this. Mental toughness. Are you ready? This is like worth $1 million. Forgive yourself and move on.
I'm noticing a theme. That's great. Love it.
Easier said than done.
And so I would love to turn things over to the audience. Do we have any question for these wonderful?
I've just been lucky enough, I guess, to not experience it. So I don't want you guys to think that you're going to be sexually harassed. You may not. And I think a lot of that has to do with the awareness as the industry changes. It's 2015 now, and there's a lot more support and legality around it. I'm on an ABC Family series that's coming out in January, and we had almost 10 hours of sexual harassment training, and they make you sit through it, and it's important because it's really important. So when you if it does come up, and it could be something really simple as like somebody on set shows you a picture that they think is funny, but to you it's offensive. I think the best way to address it is, and this is something that you'll learn just in life, and as your emotional intelligence grows and as you make some mistakes and learn from them, is to always choose compassion and kindness and to approach that person You can let your production managers know. I mean, there's always systems in place for each production on how to address those sorts of things. But now the sexual harassment and those sorts of things are taken very seriously, especially in professional SAG-AFTRA productions. So don't worry. It's not something that you have to go in and be like, oh my God, I have to hide because did that person look at me in a funny way? So I just wanted you to have another perspective that I have not experienced it. I didn't experience it really in New York either, and I was doing quick changes in front of crew members where I was in a bra and underwear. And I always felt safe and supported, and so that's another side of it.
How old are you, may I ask?
18.
So you're a senior in college, are you planning to go to college? You're a senior in high school? Okay, good. So from my experience, it comes down to awareness and boundaries. I was raped my first semester in college. And I speak on college campuses on date rape awareness and sexual assault prevention. So it's not about being a scaredy cat, but it is about being responsible for your surroundings and speaking up, but not just for yourself, but also watch around you, because it may not be that the sexual harassment is against you on a production. It may be like you see someone else being uncomfortable. So be okay speaking up and in community, awareness.
I think, I think the older you get, the more you learn how to speak up and hold your own, and you just learn how to finesse it better. There's kindness. I know a lot of women who have been sexually harassed on set and didn't speak up in the moment. But there is a way to do that with kindness and with grace and with humor, and then to remove yourself from the situation. And it's also, the entertainment industry attracts a lot of dysfunction. It also breeds a lot of dysfunction. So it's really important to stay grounded in who you essentially are and what your values are. That's why having a sense of community is so incredibly important. Having people who have your back is so incredibly important, because I have a lot of friends who go off and they go do things on set, and then there's behavior that is not appropriate. And I could tell multiple stories about that. That I've experienced, as well as a lot of people that I know. And that happens more often the younger you are in your 20s. So usually in your 30s.
And for women.
And for women specifically. So, you do learn how to I trust your intuition. You can still stay open. But again, a lot of it is, being careful when everyone's going out drinking. Having a sense of just really listening to yourself, especially when you're doing a movie that's away and everybody's going out, and there's, it's the ratio of women to men on the film is probably not going to be balanced. So it's just really listening to that. And some of it is, there's a lot of jokes and humor that, we're in the entertainment industry. It's a visual medium. Their sexuality is a huge part of humanity, and it's also it's a big selling point for projects. So you really have to have integrity in how you handle it. And I had the opportunity to say, okay, I have three choices. I can choose to either just accept the industry as it is. This is just how it is. I can reject it entirely and go do something else, or I can say I know how to play the rules of this game. I know how to communicate, I know how to stand up and still not be off-putting, but I'm going to help change the trajectory of where it's going, because I don't think that it's the right paradigm, and that's what I've done. So, as you're going to encounter whatever you're going to encounter, just to have a sense of grace, be grounded, and then figure out a way to communicate that is authentic to you.
And to add anecdotally from a different perspective as an LGBT person, when I've faced overt discrimination or homophobia, it's always been through a gatekeeper. It's always been through somebody who thought they had some sort of power over me, which is obviously sexual harassment is something that's much broader than that and much more subtle, and a lot of the people who are doing it have no idea that they're doing something bad. But as far as like those overt sort of discriminations, there's not been a person who said something homophobic or awful to me that, looking back, I wish had hired me. Not one. I'm so grateful that I didn't sign with the manager who told me I needed to work on being less gay in meetings. I'm thrilled. It worked out much better for me. Do we have some more questions?
How can you stick out?
How about, are you asking, like, do you feel that you have to compromise morality in order to be seen? I think it's actually a shift in mindset, because what makes you you is you being uniquely you. So it's not about trying to, I mean, we have like so many, all of us have done so much self-awareness and like self-help, and we've got life coaches here, but you know, it's not about trying to stick out, because when you're living your truth, and that could be you speaking up in the moment, that could be the way you approach a scene if you're an actress and saying to the director, like, hey, you know, I have this idea, are you open to listening to it? You're sticking out because you're being you, authentically you. So as you grow up, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you? I'm 16. Okay, you're 16. Great question at 16. I didn't even think that way at 16, so you're already sticking out. You know, you're going to just learn more and more about yourself. And the more you read and all these things that we've been telling you, the more you're going to blossom and be who you are. And people are going to see that that is what is sexy. That is what is compelling when somebody is grounded in who they are. They're not trying to be something that they're not.
And I wanted to touch on that with therapy. Some great advice I got from this phenomenal acting teacher in LA. He said the worst thing with actors are they need therapy. They're great actors, but therapy is holding them back of really knowing who you are. So if you got therapy, group therapy, there's so many free places you can go for that to really take the time to do an inventory on yourself and write a declaration. Who am I? What are my values? What do I stand for? And when you really know you and then live that, and give yourself a word for the year, do something, a statement, and look at that statement. And one thing I tell my clients is to, when you're brushing your teeth in the morning or whatever, look at yourself in the eyes, get to know you. We're so busy, life is so busy, let me put on my makeup, let me run out the door. We don't take the time to meditate or just go, who am I? How do I want this day to unfold? And if you start that at 16, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I have two things to say. One is people want to work with people who are great to work with. I've gotten a lot of repeat jobs and offers because I was great to work with on set. I was kind, I treated everyone with compassion, people that were in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, and that sticks out. People talk in the industry, and you can quickly have a great reputation and you can quickly destroy that reputation. So it's really, really, really important to be kind to everyone, because somebody's assistant, you know, today could be the executive producer tomorrow. And more importantly, just we should all treat, you know, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, right? So there is that. And just continue to create your content, to find your voice, to allow your voice to expand, and to not be afraid of that. Because that is the best way that you can stand out. Instead of waiting for someone else to say, you're enough, you say, cool, I'm going to just keep creating.
The other thing is, if you're compromising your morals, which it's great, if that happens, and it might, because we're human and we make mistakes. Remember, mental toughness, forgive yourself and move on, learn from it. But if you're compromising your morals, you've given your power actually to somebody else. So you're sticking out because somebody else has decided how they want that for you. So if and when you find yourself in the moment of that situation, it's like the most beautiful opportunity, and then you can write about it, by the way. And because other people are gonna go, oh my gosh, in that moment, you can make a choice to actually stick out by taking your power back.
And when you're at a fork in the road, there's a question I always ask myself. Now, the fork in the road could be sticking out morals, something higher like this, or it could be, do I want to order pizza or salad? It could be as simple as that. So the question is the same, it doesn't matter. The question is this choice moving me closer or further away from my ideal life? Is this choice moving me further or closer? Is this choice moving me closer or further away from my ideal life? So it could be a relationship. It could be, do I speak up? Or right now, it's probably not the time to speak up. Do I order this or that? Do I make this phone call, or do I just write about it and let it be? Like that. If you find a question that is a good compass for you, whenever you find yourself at that fork in the road, you don't have to know right and wrong. The answer comes from within.
And I just want to touch on that. That sounds so easy. It's not. That fork in the road is just awful. I have taken the wrong road so many times and was burned. And I'm going, what was I thinking? It's such an easy choice. So I would do the work before you get to that huge fork in the road. Again, get to know yourself, know your values, and before you make that choice, take a moment, take 5 minutes and just sit on it or make a list. If I take this road or that road, and take your time with it. It doesn't have to be like that, and you'll save yourself a lot of time.
And you can always course correct.
Yep.
It's like a bicycle. If it goes left and you're like, oh shoot, I should have gone right. Well, it's a bicycle. You just keep, course correcting. Rather than trying to keep the bicycle straight, it's like, do I go right, do I go left, and then you'll just be.
You got some more questions? Gentlemen at the top.
I think that if you watch the documentary Misrepresentation, that highlights the bad in a really beautiful way. It makes you recognize, or made me recognize, just how we are allowing commerce to dictate art. And so I think that that's a really amazing documentary to watch. It's called Misrepresentation. Yeah, you can just go to the Representation Project. It's a phenomenal one. And I also, like I said before, I highly recommend all of you filmmakers to watch that, as well as The Mask You Live In. And it's all about what's going on within how we're treating masculinity in our culture. And a lot of that is through media. So they're phenomenal documentaries.
You can also do the Bechdel test. Have you guys heard of that? Yeah. Okay, good. Well, for those of you, why don't you, who knows about it? That way, yeah, go ahead, share it with everybody.
The rules are there at least 2 women in the story? Do they talk to each other? And when they do talk about something other than a guy?
A guy. Or a girl. I mean, like, even it could be if it's, it's just talking about relationships, it's creating, and I think the Bechdel test goes for either way, because I'm tired of seeing bro movies too, so that's a good test for you writers are there 2 women, or are there 2, whatever your story is about, and are they talking about something more other than just the opposite sex or the current sex, and you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and just to kind of build on that, just thinking, are you affording your female characters the same complexity that you afford your male characters? As a writer, can you look at the page and say, yes, there's as much going on with the women in this story as there is with the men?
And if you feel like you don't necessarily have that yet, the great opportunity is you can ask some of your friends who are female, who are complex, about how you can make that complex. Or you can take a stereotype and make it layered and interesting, or you can add different character behavior to make that more interesting. And that is the real problem with the portrayal of women, is it's showing as often as shallow, or if we're strong, we're bitches. It's all of these things, just like within the masculine, that you need to be hyper masculine to be a hero, and that's not necessarily true either. So I think for all of us, none of us want to be defined by limiting ideas of who we are or who we should be.
Courtney's been trying to speak, so I'm just.
Of course, go.
Well, I was just going to say, to piggyback on the writing thing, we just had this last version of the script that we were working on, and we're having some bumps in the road, and so we did this exercise where we spent a half day, and we took every character in the script and flipped their gender and their gender identity. And it was a very interesting exercise I was in a room, very progressive thinkers. I was the only female in the room, actually, but very enlightening, but also a really great exercise, and that's something that I'm going to carry forward in the projects that I take on in the future.
Yeah, to that, one of my closest friends has sold us a project to, was it AMC, HBO? It's going around to different places, wherever it is right now. They ended up switching. He's partnered with Bryan Cranston, and they were having this back and forth with, it's called, it's a military thing, and then the short story, they ended up switching the main character, who's a drill sergeant, to a female, like an Emily Blunt type of female. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well now it worked. So it could be that it was written, it was sold, and then you could still switch it and change it and finding what works.
And I want to say on my first film that I sold, I only sold 2 scripts, but my first one, I was struggling with it, and I was going, God, I'm a female. It was a love story, and the woman was all, I want the guy, and here's something for the guy. Everything was about the guy and her wanting her prince. And then the guy was, unattainable. And I thought, let me switch this. And nobody was buying it when it was that story. I switched the roles and just, did the cut and paste, and now they were opposite, and all of a sudden it became so fascinating and interesting, and it was a character we haven't seen before. The script wasn't perfect. I went to Tahiti and got a book called Write a Screenplay in 21 Days and sat there for 21 days. Fade in, put a protagonist. Okay, there's your protagonist. Here you have to have the arch, point. Did that, and did the whole script that way in 21 days. I was like, I'm done. And I was naive enough to think I could sell it, so I did. In 3 months. But the key was the first people I sent it, they said, oh, it's good, but there's nothing new. And as soon as I did that, it was something new, and I sold it. So think about that when you're writing your female characters.
Some more questions? Gentleman in the center.
Is that indicative of the fact that very few men are willing to speak out?
I don't think it's that men are not willing to speak out, but I think it's that if you haven't lived it, you don't really have an expertise in it, And I know, like, my boyfriend, he has learned more just learning about my experiences, and he's a filmmaker. And I think that it's hard to speak out on something that you haven't lived and experienced. There are amazing, like I said, amazing men who are continuing to create more content with women, to mentor women, so that there can be more female directors and female writers, and to help people go from being an amateur to a professional. But I do think that I don't think it's that men are against women. I think it's that women need to have a voice and speak up and to use their platform and to help each other. Because I personally believe that at this day and age in our culture, what's holding women back the most are each other. That we hold each other back. We are hypercritical of each other. We hold each other to an idea of perfection that is unrealistic. If you look at the trash magazines, it's constantly hating on other women. Men don't do that. You don't see in Men's Health pictures of men in their cellulite. They don't do that to each other. Women do, and we have no problem gossiping and putting each other down. And so, I think the reason we are here to speak up is we're saying that paradigm, we've been brainwashed into thinking that that's how women should be. I mean, look at the housewives of whatever city. It's horrific values. I'm appalled that this is something that we have adopted as part of our culture.
We've got two men here we've got several men here that came out, and Peanut's dad was here too, just to support us that, are here that could easily just be on this panel. So I think it's just because we focused on that we were in it. But I was thinking about movies that this just came to me because I remember it was one of the first time movies I saw with Erin Brokovich. And it was just like, it was great to see somebody like Julia Roberts, who normally did these very predictable romantic comedies that clearly did not pass the Bechdel test. And obviously it's based on something that actually happened, but that's an example of a movie that I think is just like, it's about a woman and a struggle for something very real and personal for her. It was just and I think she won an Oscar for that role.
Yeah, she did. Like part of the reason that I'm an ambassador for the National Women's History Museum is because we don't show history of what women have done in our history books. It's not accurate. It's not an equal balance of what has happened. So if you are looking for what are some interesting female characters or what have women done, go to the website National Women's History Museum. I mean, there are women who have done incredible things in the United States. So that can be a great way to be inspired.
Yeah, and a great other show that just came to me too is Orange is the New Black on Netflix. That's a great template for diversity in women's roles.
Great. Some more questions?
Not being labeled a bitch, for those of you who didn't hear.
I think, there's actually a great program, Alison Armstrong. It's all about gender dynamics, and I think that it teaches women how to speak up without emasculating. Because a lot of women who are strong feel that they need to be strong by emasculating, and that doesn't create partnership, and it doesn't enroll it doesn't enroll men to want to be on your side and help you. Because most men do want to help. It's just how it's being asked and if they're being appreciated. And also, I think then what's great too is it makes you understand why women do what women do. Because oftentimes to be successful, we're taught that we need to be more masculine. So you can still be feminine and embrace who you are, and get other people to help support you. If you just learn more about communication, which, the thing is like how I grew up, we didn't have great communication in our family. So I had to learn that over the years, and how to be a good business person.
It's a great question. If you do check out Alison Armstrong or Google that, the Queen's Code that she offers is great. And I used to teach a course called Take the Bitch Out of the Boardroom, specifically addressing that, because there's a big difference between being powerful and being forceful. So another book would be great. It's called Power versus Force. And really being able to learn not to do this, but just to allow. And it's not passive, but it's, check out Power versus Force.
And that's also, this goes for men as well, because there is a difference, between being a fearful leader and a leader that inspires. And filmmakers are leaders. So,
You're also going to learn because you'll make some mistakes, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
So you'll learn for yourself, and I want to encourage you guys to experiment in your life, and I don't mean that in a, I mean from when you do make mistakes. Like, you can read books and learn a lot from books, but the truth is real learning comes from living your life. So you may have an instant where you do blurt something out, and like it does happen, and that's okay too. And you'll be like, "Where's my Alison Armstrong book? What does it say to do on page 55?" You know what I mean? It may not happen in that moment, and so you're gonna just learn a little bit by trial and error, and that's awesome too.
Yeah, it becomes part of who you are.
It becomes
with
part of who
time.
you are. Yeah, it's integrated because you're like, well, I remember that time. Gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Hold on, it's gonna come to me. You
I
guys
think
can
that
make
that's a
time.
part of anyone's career, though. To build a career, you can't, at a certain point it feels like you're just throwing darts and hoping, that some of them will land and you'll get that job. You'll get that directing job, you'll get that writing job, you'll get that acting job. And at a certain point you do just have to pound the pavement, and morally you say yay or nay to certain roles. But as you advance, you're going to constantly be redirecting. What do you want? The industry is very quick to pigeonhole people, so it is incredibly important that even if you're getting perceived one way, whether it's they only see me as a 4-camera sitcom comedy director. It's like, okay, cool. Well, then take a little break and make a project that shows you in a different way. It's very important to constantly be creating content to be able to showcase the things that you want, so you don't stay victim to how other people perceive you, and so that will create more opportunities.
Yeah, I was going to say, create yourself.
Yeah.
You have the technology. Who do you want to be seen as? Do you want to be an Erin Brokovich, or do you want to be a Real Housewives person? So
You may want to be both.
Yeah, and
that's
start
okay,
making
too.
short films about that. Do 5-minute shorts, put them in your reel, create a reel that really represents the diversity of you. And then you'll see a lot of change, because people will perceive you differently. And really think about the whole picture, not just the acting aspect of your brand, how you dress, how you act, how you come across. All that is how people see you. And when I was casting my movie, Psycho Sushi, and when the actor walked in the door, usually I gave them 30 seconds or a minute to do their, whatever their part was. And when they walked through the door, I could tell yes or no, just by their energy, how they dress for the part, how committed. And the men who came up to shake my hand and kiss my hand and compliment me, it's like, really, do I want that on the set? When they're over the top. So it's like right away, they wouldn't get the part. So it's really be conscious of how you walk in the room and being that character.
Zoe Kazan. It's Elia Kazan's granddaughter, and I went to college with her, and so forgive me, Zoe, for not remembering. Like, I just had a brain fart. Zoe Kazan does she's a playwright. She wrote a play. She's been on Broadway. She does film. She creates her own stuff. And then Elizabeth Merriweather, who was also a playwright, I went to college with, and she created the series, the comedy series with Deschanel.
Zoe Deschanel.
Zoe Deschanel.
New Girl.
New Girl. She created New Girl. Elizabeth Merriweather.
Broad City, I would
Broad
say.
City, yeah.
Throw that out there. Shout out to the web series world. Who else are you guys fans of? Let's get some names out there.
Genji Cohan, Orange is the New Black, obviously Weeds. Mary Louise Parker's career is amazing. The creators of, actually there's a lot of female showrunners now. Shonda Rhimes, hello. Television is such a great medium now with cable, and obviously being like on the web series, I feel like there's so many emerging female showrunner voices. Who else?
Yeah, and I think that it's really interesting. I started thinking about TV immediately when you
Yeah.
started talking about interesting female roles, but I would say I almost don't know a really talented actress who is not in some way involved in
Yeah.
the development of her
Reese
projects.
Witherspoon. Reese Witherspoon is
Kate
a huge.
Winslet, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and at a certain point, most actresses need to start producing or being involved in order to continue getting roles, or getting roles so they're not viewed as only one thing. So,
I'm going back to school right now for writing because I have lots of ideas and I felt like I was writing and I decided I needed to really go back and learn from the inside out, and I'm ready.
Angelina Jolie has an incredible production
Oh
company.
yeah.
Yes.
And I think if you
Charlize
start,
Theron.
yeah, if you start Googling the people that you admire, you might find they have a hand in a lot of their projects, if not as an actual producer, in terms of being an advocate for the project.
But non-A-list, because obviously those women are A-list, I would check out Zoe Kazan. I mean, her grandfather's obviously a living legend, which helps, but she's super smart and works really hard.
Great. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you all so much. Thank you.